Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of YPA. That's Young People Ask. That's right. We're here to answer your questions, whatever faith questions you may have. We don't have all the answers.
Oh,
Well,
yes,
I don't.
certainly we don't. Me neither.
Okay. But we want to, yeah. But we encourage and we want to walk through these tough questions for you to help find a solution, help find an answer, because God is with us in all our doubts and all our questions and all our discerning and growing moments. Which asking questions is that, no, Father?
You know, it comes down to when you think about the Greek philosophers. You know how they started acquiring and sharing knowledge. It came down to these Q&A basically sessions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they would just get together in the ancient Greek, and you can think of Socrates and Plato and like how, you know, we just talk it out basically. You know, like, you know, and people would pose a question and then amazing insight will come out.
They just talk. Yeah.
Exactly. And we are Catholic, and as Catholics we have like a gazillion questions regarding our faith, right? Which is a good thing, because the more we ask, I guess, the more we become informed, and all that knowledge eventually comes down into a solid thing and a greater conversion.
So we're here to talk about why ask questions. That's our question for today. Why ask a question?
We should ask them. You know,
yes.
Now we're going to ask you. Like, why should you ask questions?
So this podcast, like we said, is all about that. Is discerning, growing, learning together. But a lot of times, I think in our faith, at least I felt I wasn't encouraged to ask hard questions about the faith. Or if I asked too hard of a question, that I was doubting or I was a bad Christian, you know. So how did you grow up? Did you ever feel like that?
Me too. It's like whenever, especially when it came down to like a deep theological question, or like, well, you know, can you help me understand what how an angel looks like, you know, or things like that. I remember growing up, like, I'm from Ecuador, you know, so my grandpa would say, like, you don't question things, you know. And then I went to a Catholic high school, and same thing, you know, the priest is like, no, you don't question that, how dare you, you know, like, offending God, you know, with things. Because, as you're right, I mean, I don't think there was much of and there is not in some places, like, much of a distinction between really questioning for the sake of learning and not questioning because, and you know, separating that from like thinking that questioning is I'm already against it.
Yeah.
And
yes,
that's not true. Yeah,
that's true. I think it has to do also kind of with our upbringing. I'm a middle child, so I was questioned about everything by my older siblings, and so I learned to live with it and kind of handle it. And now I think questioning is beautiful. I think it's a source of growth. It's a source of learning about yourself too, and I mean growth internally and externally, yeah. But it's not the way people view questioning all the time. In school, I mean, you're supposedly meant to ask questions, but so I've had experiences with teachers. I ask questions and they're not too happy that I ask questions, right?
It's like, you know, there's a story, you know, that, you know, there was this girl who actually liked to ask questions, and so, you know, the teacher was getting upset. So she would always raise her hand and said, like, you know, how about this and how about that? Can you help me understand this and all that? So one day the teacher actually got so upset that he said to her, you know, you come here to learn, you don't come here to ask. And I'm like, well, that's an oxymoron right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And if we look at Jesus' teachings, his parables, the way he speaks to his followers, he poses a lot of questions to them. Right?
Yes.
And it's kind of forcing them to think critically. I just finished my master's. I'm going to be celebrating all year long.
Yes.
Thank you.
Everybody's welcome. Come here Wednesdays and Sundays and Mondays. Pretty much every day.
And I kind of reflect on what getting my master's means. Right? It means that I was lucky, actually, because I would have never been able to go for the scholarship that I received through Catholic Extension. I'm not paid for that, but thank you, Catholic Extension. But what it allowed me to do, I was forced. School does that, right? It forces you to sit down and to think critically upon a subject, right? Sometimes those subjects we don't care to think about, but in this case, in my master's, I really love the subjects, and so I was forced to take time. Should have had more time spent thinking about this stuff, but these 3 years that I took doing my master's was forcing me to stop to think critically about whatever the class was about, but to ask questions, hard questions. And so I sat with it. And I think that's what learning is about. Right? You have to sit with these tough questions, be uncomfortable with these tough questions, because most of these tough questions we don't have answers for. Right? And so our job is, let's go find someone who may be able to point me in the right direction, or a book that might give me more insight. But this
is a book, remember,
yeah.
You don't know, I know everybody uses phones,
physical book. And I've learned that is an important aspect of my faith. Was I started asking questions, probably in high school. I think we've all asked questions along our faith, but we don't recognize the potential that asking a question can do. Right? I think my earliest memory as a young boy was asking my mother, where did God come from? Wow. I was younger than 10.
Wow.
And I don't know what prompted me to say that, whatever, but I knew I could go to my mom, and I asked her, and God bless my mother, she doesn't have an answer. I don't know if anybody does, right? But she was so, she didn't know what to say. And she's like, oh, it's an equal, and you're not old enough to ask these questions. Like, you're not old enough, this is what you don't. Just don't ponder on that. Don't sit with that. And I took it forward, and I was like, okay, see ya, and I continued playing. I see what my mother was doing. It's like, number one, how do you unpack that, right? If you're a parent, you've probably gone through those heavy life questions that your kids ask you randomly, right? And that was that moment for my mom. But I remember that distinctly because I wasn't happy with that answer. Right? And so it sat. So it sat with me. And then years later, I had more questions. Why do we do this? Why do we do that? And I think everyone has had moments like that. But what do we do with them? So we have this prompt in our mind. Do we just, that was, okay, whatever, move on? Or do we take this and critically analyze it, deconstruct it, take a look at it? Where do I go to find the next step with this? I share this example with when I give talks, confirmations, retreat, whatever it is. That questions is never a bad thing. What is a bad thing is you just ask a question and you stop. Right? Imagine if we did that in school.
Exactly.
Right? You don't do that. You don't do that. You ask the questions because you're looking for an answer. And some teachers don't always have the answer. Because let's work our way through it. And the faith is no different.
Of course.
Let's ask the questions of why there is venial and mortal sin. What's the point of that? Right? And we have plenty of sources to go to that. But maybe you don't know where to go. Fine. Listen, go to your parents, go to your roommate, go to a father. If you're intimidated by Father Byron, go to an altar server.
Go to Paul. I don't know. It's safer shot.
And I think that's also, we don't have to get into it, but I think that's why you need a community in faith to use this, right? And that's what we hope to do with our Bible studies, with our other podcasts with Sister Kathleen, EKG. That's how to have a faith discussion. Right, and so you can't go through your faith alone. We know that. Right? Being a Christian means you need to be a part of a community. So asking these questions are, I think, even more important into our faith life. And as a spiritual practice, we need to ask these questions. We need to critically think about God, about Jesus, about our salvation. That's why we participate in Misa, right? We participate in Mass. We just don't attend Mass. We have to be aware.
Listen or hear Mass.
Or fall asleep at
Or fall asleep in Mass. Although if you do, God will still love you. I mean, that's good to know, because like sometimes, you have like a rough weekend or you're working hard. I love, Edgar, what you talked about deconstructing. You really, that word, we hear about construction. We put something together. Deconstructing is like taking everything piece by piece and taking it apart. Well, my taste in music is, I'm old, I'm not your age, so there is this singer that I like, her name is Kylie Minogue. She's an Aussie, and she has a song called All the Lovers. Nothing extraordinary about the song. The song is just like regular disco song, nothing extraordinary.
Club song.
Not club, and the lyrics are like so. I love Kylie. I don't know, chances are Kylie might look into this one day, but
that'd be amazing. Let us know.
I love you, Kylie, but there's a song, I like it, and one day as I was going through YouTube, just kind of finding different versions of the song, they had like they said like, we have this song by Kylie Minogue, All the Lovers Deconstructed. So I just clicked into it. And you know what they do? They take like every single piece of the song and isolate it and just play it. So the little echo, the little thing, the little guitar, you know.
Jeez.
And it's amazing because you see the final product and it's so beautiful, but you forget that each piece, each part of it is also powerful and it stands on its own and it has its own life. So when you talk about deconstructing something that again, deconstruction doesn't mean that we are protesting against it or rejecting something, you know. I think deconstruction can help us grow in identity, grow in
you're asking, why do I do the things I do?
Exactly.
Which is normal, which we all do in various parts of our lives. That's why it puzzles me a lot. Why don't we do that in our faith life, our spiritual life?
Exactly. You know, rather than taking or thinking that we are not supposed to question.
Yeah, but and I also think, give credit to us, the faithful, I don't think that has always been the message of the church. For thousands of years, it was not ask questions. It was usually sit there, look pretty, and obey.
And listen,
right?
And listen to questions.
Which is not wrong when it's done righteously, which is done in the spirit. Right?
Yeah. No, and we have to admit it. You know, there is a professor in seminary who said sometimes we have dark chapters in history, but we do, but we do have history. You know, and so pray for Pope Francis. I mean, he is the one who's saying like, you guys, you know, just speak up. You know, and again, it's not like a matter of being a rebel. It's a matter of, you know, the day when you were baptized, we, you know, we're given this beautiful access. You know, we were given a right into the deposit of faith, a right into the life of the church, a right to get to know better, you know, grow better into our faith. Of course, we're also invited into the life of the church as to being a missionary as well. But I mean, baptism gives us that access to and St. Paul puts it beautifully, you know, to get us a gift, everything that belongs to Jesus as a right. But we do that, and what we want to do with this and what we want to say with this is like we have so many questions about the faith, and maybe this can be your space, your corner, your podcast to send us a question. You remember what we did in the previous season, all the topics that we talked about? I know we talked about Lent, we talked about fasting, we talked about
what do you do with a friend? It's not a good influence.
How to make choices. There were like all kinds of things that people were sending.
Yeah.
I can't even remember what I did yesterday. You know? That's why I just ask you because literally I can't remember much. But your question, like, why do people wear a veil? You know, why do we use incense? How about the one about we were just talking before we started recording?
Yeah, I say that's a good sample question that boggles my mind and definitely will not answer. But I think this is a good example of how I handle things like this and how it doesn't. And I don't think too many things shake my faith, or like when I say that, I mean not too many things are going to take me away from God, but there's some things that just leave me in awe of. I am not going to know God in its entirety. I'm not going to have the 100% answers that our world demands that we have in things that we do. Exactly. Our faith is one of those things that you're just not gonna have all the answers.
It's infinite. You always get deeper and deeper and deeper.
So let's do that sample question. Let's do the sample question. There's this book here that we have in our office, and we kind of just stumbled across when I'm cleaning, and this is just Catholic Q&A, just the most common questions, and so we're just opening it up and seeing. And one of the first ones was heavy, and kind of was similar to the question that I asked my mom.
Yeah.
But it is, what did God do before creation? Right, and then if you're wondering what the book says, you can come by and ask me.
Or you have the answer, please come and tell us.
If you have the answer out there. So yeah, I think what did God do before creation? I can recall I've asked a version of that question. But that's heavy. Number one, just to ask that question in its own, that's quite, I guess, theologically mature or faith mature.
Kind of an Aquinas kind of question, I guess. You know?
And those are the type of questions that Aquinas and a lot of doctors of the church ask and wrestle with.
Normal, regular people also, questions. Sometimes we might not feel that that's as strong or like have like the dedication to or the time to deal with it as Aquinas did. I mean, that's all he did for living, just standing and all that. But
I want to think critically
when it
for
comes
a living.
to us, can you imagine that? You know, it's like just sit and eat and think
and research and write lots of books.
I love Aquinas, and he's contributed a lot. But I'm pretty sure you have that same question.
Yeah. So how do we handle this, right? I'm going to walk the way I would handle this, the way I walk through this. What did God do before creation? Heavy question.
Mm-hmm.
Right off the bat, I know I'm not going to be able to answer this. This is way more. You know what? It's on the verge of scary and beautiful when you sit with these questions, right? It's beautiful in between. Because it's scary because it hurts my mind to think. Of course. Right? To think
it's a different paradigm. It's a different set of beliefs.
Yeah, and again, it's comforting because I am human.
Yes.
I am human, and so that just boggles my mind. Why? Because for us, time is linear, right? And its beginning, I was born at this time, and I will die at this time. I don't know what that is, but it's straightforward, right? I know that for God, it is not like that, right? We recognize as God as always the ultimate being, the being that always is, right? The way he tells Moses his name, I am who I am. What a smart-ass answer. I love that. I don't think it's being a smart-ass, but I think that's honestly the only way
description.
You little human mind can understand this. So with that, it tells me God is beyond time, right? God is beyond gender. God is beyond so much more than we try to box God in. Right?
Wait. So what I'm hearing is like, so he's not the white bearded guy who's sitting on the cloud?
That's an image that many of us have. Yeah, but that is definitely not. It is a comforting image, and that could be a whole other podcast there. Someone asked that, and we'll get into it.
That's right.
But that's a beautiful. So this question, because of my personal research and interests and the readings that I have done, I recognize that I box God in so much. I try to make God the image that I have of God. God is beyond that, right? And one of those boxes I try to put God in is time, right? And so I think this is a natural question that does that. Yes. If you box God in time, what did God do before creation, before earth? Essentially, if I looked at the reflection real quick, it says God does not have time. There was nothing before God because God has always been, right? Now, if I wasn't in my office and I didn't have this book, what would I do? I think I would talk to my friends about it. Thankfully, I have Catholic friends who I can talk this through. By no means do they have the answers, but we can go back and forth and just saying, that just hurts my head. Why? How? And you just try your best to do it. But then I know there's not a right answer, but an answer that the church has settled upon. And that we have settled upon as church faithfuls. So I know I could go to the priest and help me to walk through this, or Sister Kathleen, which I do quite a bit.
But
they don't have to be religious, right? There's many people who study this all the time. But I know what I'm seeking. I think when we say we want answers, is something that is comforting and that can sit with us to be like, I at least somewhat understand. I think in this instance, a lot of with God is, I understand that I cannot understand, right?
And it's okay.
And it's okay.
And it's beautiful and it's normal. I don't understand how this works. Maybe you do. But I don't. I mean, it's amazing. Well, it's amazing what you're saying in the sense that these things will come to us. And I would like to push it a little even further and beyond that. It's like, well, why is this question emerging in you? What brought you to think of, when did God, what was the question that you asked?
Who made God?
Who made God? Where did God start? It's like, so, you were thinking of God. You were thinking of the divine. You were trying to make a connection, Whoever asked this question, so did God exist before time? It's someone who has been thinking of that, So take that as an affirmation too, that these questions actually, they are God moments. They are grace moments in which we can, I think, there is something good out of that. There is something good about try to articulate something that comes from somewhere within us, and that experience rather than reinforces it. So if you have those questions, any questions regarding the faith, Edgar says it great, find, a way to ask. Find a way to ask. The second thing that I would like to say is like, you and I are communication majors, so
Yes.
I'm pretty sure there's a phrase that you hear in communications: check your sources. Check your sources.
Yes.
Sources. Check your sources. If you have a question about where did that start, chances are,
I'd say don't go to Wikipedia right away. Like, don't just Google it.
or be careful. Check your sources. You can go to Wikipedia, but check the citation. Where if it's not, if this,
if it has my name on it, not good.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, there's a name, or check, source pending, or like this guy, doesn't even have like a credential.
Yeah.
Google the person. Take the time. Your faith is sacred, and I cannot tell you, and I know that because I've seen people asking you all kinds of things that they hear or they watch on YouTube, and they come and tell us, and they take it, they take it as the truth, So, but then when you go to the sources, you just figure out that it was somebody who's not even Catholic, just writing something for the sake of getting visits, or selling things, So check your sources. And I always say, you have the Vatican II documents. You
we have a copy in here too now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where is it? Oh. And it's the
Big fat book.
And this is the pocket version, right?
Yeah. The easy reading.
Yeah, we'll have to memorize that. The Catechism of the Catholic Church. It has literally
Spark notes.
Yes,
Spark
notes of it. This is kind of half Vatican II Council, documents. In the back you have basically a topical period. It has all kinds of topics that you have questions. I'm pretty sure it has the origin of God or something.
I'm sure.
Where is it? It must be on the other side. So just that, inform. Give yourself. It's like I've seen people on the stores, on the grocery stores, taking the time to really read the nutritional facts. They take the time. They go by can. It's like do the same with the faith. The things that you want to welcome as truths, of dogma into your life, in Catholic life. Make sure that you read the nutritional facts, that you get a reliable.
One question I think I'd leave people with: when you have these huge questions where you don't have the answers, or it troubles you, or it's not the answer that you thought, I always look, for example, in this question: what did God do before creation? How is that going to affect my relationship with God and my community? Right? Really, knowing the answer to this doesn't deter me from being a good follower of Christ, right?
Exactly.
It's just a question that I'm curious about that can make me a better Christian, sure. But is it going to impede me from following God's commandments, from following Jesus' example? No. I could spend my life not knowing the answer without that. So let's ask that, and don't forget the bigger question of why we're called to be Christians, or the way, if we are followers of the way of Jesus Christ, right? God tells us the two most important commandments. It's not know the catechism and these tough questions, right?
Just memorize this.
It's love God and love your neighbor. That is the definition, the bare minimum of being a follower of Jesus Christ. All these other questions, all this theology, all these documents that come, the dogmas, doctrines are beautiful, right? Because what we're doing is we're looking at the details within this. But by no means not knowing these things or sitting with these uncomfortable questions, is that going to change the way I love people or love God?
I don't think so. On the contrary, I think something will just emerge from that. Anything that leads to knowledge, it produces something as it makes us grow.
Knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power. There you go. That's not like a cliche.
It is. No, it is a saying.
The natives.
I think of it on school rock. Whatever it's called.
But so the questions. So Edgar, my question to you would be: so have you found the answer?
No more questions. That hurts.
I know. Like
no more questions.
Where do people send us questions?
Our most common method is we talk to them. They just come up to us and just ask us questions, because that's what people do anyways. And we just take those and we present them to you as a podcast, right?
Yes.
But if you're not near here, if you don't go to the same church as we do, we still want to hear from you. You can find our emails on our website, the Newman website. And I'll put them in a podcast. You have the way to contact us in the description below. Shoot us an email. Eventually you become our friends and you can text us our email or our emails the questions or text us the questions. We want to open up your mind. We want to walk with you. That's what being church is. Don't worry if you've never thought of tough questions about the faith. Chances are you have. Yeah, and you probably have. You just can't remember.
Sometimes they come and then we're like, I'm too busy. I'll just
and you just tuck it away, right? And that's okay. But be aware of the moments that you do and sit with them. Find someone. Oh, here's something. Let me write this down. Right, and pray about it. What do you want me to do with this question? What am I supposed to do with this? Right? Sit with it. Sit with it. The one thing for sure, you're not meant to go through it alone. Right.
And we have this podcast and now this video because we get questions the whole time, from our students, from our peers, from our friends, from emails, different Instagram. So that's beautiful. And again, we will do our research. We will try to see what the church has to say about that. And we'll be happy to just grow together, work together.
It makes us better.
And what you were saying about community and relation is it's not only you. I mean, it's us. Like you and I. All of us together, just kind of learning and discerning and getting deeper into the beautiful mystery of God.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Father Byron. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Until next time, keep asking questions.